CSS Selectors. The syntax of CSS has three parts: selectors, property, and value. Selectors are any HTML element, just like paragraph element, IMG or image element, anchor tag or a tag, heading tags like h1, h2, etc., or table. Any HTML elements are selectors. And the property and value, property value pairs are defined for each selector. Property is a type of attribute of HTML tag. All HTML attributes are converted into CSS properties. They could be color, border, etc. Values are assigned to properties. There are a variety of selector forms. Different selectors are available. 7 different types of selectors are there in CSS. Symbol selector forms are there. Class selectors, generic selectors, ID selectors, contextual selectors, pseudo selectors, universal selectors. These are the 7 different selector forms. A selector specifies the elements to which the following style informations applies. We will see each and every selector forms here. Symbol selectors. The simplest selector form is a single element name such as h1. The property values in the rule apply to all occurrences of the named element. The selector could be a list of element names separated by commas, in which case the property values apply to all occurrences of all the named elements or selectors. Two examples are given here: h1 followed by property value list or declarations. Property value pairs are known as declarations. The second example consists of two elements there. That means there are two selectors h2 and h3. So h1, h2, h3 are different heading types or heading tag names. So h1 is the biggest size, h2 is the next lower, h3 is the next lower size. The first of these selector forms specifies that the following property value list applies to all h1 elements. On the other hand, the second example specifies that the following property value list applies to all h2 and h3 elements. Next is class selector. Class selectors are used to allow different occurrences of the same element to use different style specifications. A style class is defined in a style element by giving the style class a name which is attached to the element's name with a period. Period means a dot symbol. Consider an example. If you want two paragraph styles in a document, we can create two classes. For example, normal and warning. You could define these two classes in the content of a style element as follows. Two different classes specifications for paragraph element or p tag is given here, one in blue color and the other one is maroon color. So p dot normal followed by property value list enclosed in curly brackets. The same way we are creating another class for paragraph tag with another class name, that is warning. P dot warning property value list enclosed in curly brackets. Within the document body, the particular style class that you want is specified with the class attribute of the affected element. We will see an example for paragraph element. See here, two examples are specified as the last two lines, one in blue color and the other one in maroon and red color. So in the first example, a class attribute is specified for paragraph element. P followed by class is equal to normal. Normal is the class name that we have already created. P dot normal property value list. And that particular style is applied to the content of paragraph tag where class is equal to normal. See, the second example has class name is equal to warning. So the second style that we have specified for paragraph tag with class name is equal to warning, that is applicable to the second example. The content of paragraph tag will be in a different style. So this is how class selectors are working. You need to specify different class names for different class or style specifications. Another type of selector form is generic selector. Sometimes it is convenient to have a class of style specification that applies to the content of more than one kind of element. For example, we have different elements like paragraph, image, anchor, table, list, etc. We need to give a particular style for all the identified elements, more than one elements. Then generic selectors will be useful. And this is done by using generic class, which is defined without an element name in its selector. Without the element name, the name of the generic class begins with a period, as in the following: generic style class dot sale property value list. In the previous slide, in the previous example, we have used p dot normal and p dot warning. So that dot represents it's a class for paragraph element. Here we are not specifying any element, directly we have used dot sale. So that makes it a generic selector. That is, this particular sale class name is not specified for a particular element. This is applicable for any element that we have used in our web page. We will see the example. Now, in the body of a document, you could have the following markup: h3 class is equal to sale, weekend sale slash h3. So h3 is a heading tag. So there we have used the new generic class name over there. Class is equal to sale. Similarly, for paragraph class also, or paragraph element also, class name, class attribute is having a value sale. That means the generic class name sale is assigned to class attribute of paragraph element also. So likewise, you can give a particular class or style to a number of different elements. Now we will see ID selector. ID selector allows the application of a style to one specific element. This is works almost similar to class selectors. So instead of using a dot symbol, we are using hash symbol to define ID selectors. The general form of an ID selector is as follows: hash specific ID, that is the ID name over there. You can give any valid identifier for ID selector, specific ID name, followed by property value list. As you would probably guess, the style specified in the ID selector applies to the element with the given ID. We will see one example. Consider the following selector hash section 14 followed by property value list. Here we have created a new ID. So hash defines an ID. Section 14 is the name of that ID. So that section 14 is a particular value for ID attribute of any element. Now we will see the usage of that particular section 14 ID selector in the last example. Last line, there is one example: h2 ID is equal to section 14 followed by the content of h2 tag 1.4 calico cats. So a particular style property value list is defined for section 14 that gives a particular style. So that style is applied to h2 element here. Another important type of selector form is contextual selector. Selectors can specify in several different ways that the style should apply only to elements in certain positions in the document. The simplest form of contextual selector is the descendant selector. We will see what are descendant selectors. For example, element B is a descendant of element A. If it appears in the content of A, in this particular situation, A is the ancestor of B. A particular element can be selected by listing one or more of the ancestors of the element in the selector, with only white space separating the element names. In this example, a particular rule applies its style only to the content of ordered list elements that are descendants of unordered list elements in the document. Here in this example, ul space ol property value list. The rule applies only to ol elements, ordered list elements that are descendants of unordered list. That means you have created one particular list that starts with unordered list and a sub part of that particular list is an ordered list. Numbering will be there or labels will be there for the list items. For those numbered or labeled list items only, this property value list is applicable because UL is the parent and OL is the descendant. So here property value list specified in this particular rule is applicable only to the descendant, that is ordered list. In this example, OL LI, that is list item followed by UL is specified here. So CSS includes that particular subpart. For example, here oil is a starting tag and inside ordered list one particular unordered list is specified. Here OL is the parent and UL is the descendant. So suppose you are specifying a particular rule, like note in the example, it is like OL space LI property value list, then OL space UL property value list. In that particular case, UL part is only having that particular specified style because UL is the descendant of OL. That's why. In the previous example, UL is the ancestor and OL is a descendant. So this particular property value list applicable to OL only. In this example, it is reversed. OL is the parent tag and UL is the child tag. So ancestor is OL and UL is the descendant. So that's why it is applicable to UL tags only. CSS includes a child selector. For example, the following selector applies to LI elements only if they are children of OL elements. So LI is list item for an ordered list element. OL stands for ordered list. So OL greater than LI. So instead of say space, we are using a greater than symbol for specifying the child or children, followed by property value list. So here this selector applies the style only to list items of OL elements. So LI list items, those are children of OL elements. Those children are having this particular property value list or the particular style. Child selectors can be specified over any number of elements in a family hierarchy, not just one generation like the previous style rule OL greater than LI. You can give more generations here. For example, the following selector selects EM elements that are children of H1 elements that are children of paragraph elements. That means P is the ancestor or grandfather. The children of P element is H1 followed by EM, that is children of H1 element, followed by property value list that is specified as P greater than H greater than EM. So EM, that is emphasis, that particular element is having this particular property value list provided they are the children of H1 and H1 is the child of P tag. The first child selector specifies the first child of the element to whose name is attached. First child, that is a particular style name. For example, consider the following p colon first child property value list. That means first child of p is having property value list. Who is the first child of paragraph tag? That particular child is only having this particular property value list. For example, p is having a particular p tag is enclosed with another tag, or p is enclosing another tag. Two or more tags will be there in p and slash p. Then the first child, who is the element who immediately comes after p tag, that is the first child. The second element will be the second child, third child, and so on. So here first child is only having the style specification p colon first child. That means first child selector specifies the first child of the element to whose name is attached. The next type of selector forms are pseudo classes. Pseudo classes specifies that certain style apply when something happens rather than because the target element simply exists. The previous example we have seen the ancestor and descendant relationship or the children relationship, etc. But here, instead of existing such elements, something happens means when you click or when you mouse over a particular element, then something to be happened, just like such implementation is performed using pseudo classes. The two pseudo class for styling links are link and visited. So link and visited are two pseudo class names for styling. The link pseudo class is used to style a link that has not been selected, and the visited style class or pseudo class is used to style a link that previously has been selected. And another thing is the style of hover pseudo class that applies when it is associated element has the mouse cursor over it. Browsers often use blue as the default color for unvisited links and red or purple for visited links. When using the hover pseudo class, changing the size of an element from its initial size, for example by enlarging or shrinking the font size, can lead to some problems. Some example problems are: if the font size is made larger, the larger size could cause the element to overflow the area reserved for it in the display, causing the whole document to be rearranged. That would likely annoy the user. Whereas the names of style classes and generic classes begin with a period, the names of pseudo class begin with a colon. We already have seen class specifications and ID specifications, etc. There we are using dot and hash symbols. Here colon is used. The names of pseudo class begins with a colon. For example, the selector for the hover pseudo class applied to an h2 element is as follows: h2 colon hover followed by property value list. Anytime the mouse cursor is positioned over an h2 element, the style defined in the given property value list are applied to the content of the h2 element. That is the case of hover pseudo class. We have another two classes, pseudo class names link and visited. So likewise for anchor tag you can specify link and visited, a colon link, a colon visited followed by property value list. You can specify that also. Here only one example is given, h2 colon hover, that is applicable when the mouse cursor is positioned over the h2 element. And the last type is universal selector. The universal selector denoted by an asterisk or star symbol that applies its style to all elements in a document. In some cases, for example, we wanted every element in a document to have a particular set of properties, we could include the following star property value list. So that is applicable to the entire web page. So these are the selectors or different selector forms of CSS. Thank you.